What if I told you that there was an MLB pitcher who was severely overweight and spent almost every night partying but still destroyed everyone? Well, CC Sabathia did exactly that, managing to win the Cy Young Award, become a 6-time All-Star, and even help the Yankees secure a championship. But what made Sabathia so good? And how did he find success despite weighing over 300 pounds and routinely drinking until he passed out? Well, to find out, we have to go back to 1980 in Vallejo, California. Sabathia was raised in an area filled with violence and crime, but luckily, he would avoid that lifestyle thanks to his parents. His father was a big sports fan, so naturally, Sabathia took an interest in baseball at just 4 years old. Over the years, he began developing his skills, finding great success and always being the biggest and strongest kid on the field. But things were not always easy for the young Sabathia. When he was 12, his parents separated out of nowhere, causing a rift in his family. And just 2 years after that, his grandfather tragically passed away from lung cancer. So, hopeless and lost, he began drinking at only 14 years old, as a way to numb the pain and hide from his feelings. However, despite everything he was dealing with off the field, Sabathia remained laser focused on his dream of reaching MLB. Throughout high school, Sabathia took his emotions out on the field, using his size and competitive nature to dominate the competition. And it was thanks to his incredible play that he would achieve his dream much sooner than anyone expected. At just 18 years old, he was selected 20th overall by Cleveland, earning a life-changing signing bonus of $1.3 million. However, the decision to pursue his dreams and leave behind his family did not come easily. For the first time in his life, Sabathia found himself entirely on his own, and after settling into his new environment, his drinking would only get worse. In his book, he said this about the insane habits he was developing. "I didn't know why at the time, but my drinking always had to be extreme, to go from 0 to 100. I would routinely drink until I blacked out. Unconsciousness was actually the preferred outcome." Although, despite his growing obsession with partying, Sabathia's performance on the field remained entirely unaffected. At this point, he stood at 6'6" and weighed over 250 pounds, and with the help of professional coaching, his skill level would skyrocket, seeing his fastball rise from 93 to 99 miles an hour. As you can imagine, the team quickly took notice, and Sabathia was eager to make his debut. But his first few weeks in MLB proved to be extremely challenging. Now, one thing that's challenging for me is developing healthy habits, but luckily, the sponsor of today's video, AG1, makes it super easy to do just that. If you don't know, AG1 is a research-backed daily health drink that combines a multivitamin, probiotic, and a blend of superfoods. So literally all I have to do is mix 1 scoop a day into some water along with some vitamin D3 and K2. And just like that, I'm getting 75 high-quality ingredients that support energy and immunity throughout the day, which for me is super helpful as I definitely miss out on a ton of nutrients in my normal diet. Overall, AG1 simply gives peace of mind, providing comprehensive nutrition to support your body, your brain, and gut health. And for that reason, I think it's a great and easy way to make a positive impact on your health. So if you want to give it a try, go to the link in the description or scan this QR code and get $20 off your first subscription of AG1. And once again, thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this video. On April 8th, 2001, he was flown to Baltimore the night before his first start, and he was so nervous that he couldn't sleep. And unfortunately, his lack of energy would cause his pitching to suffer, as he gave up 3 runs in the first inning of his career. Luckily, after a few more rough outings, he would eventually settle in and win 17 starts throughout the season. So, despite being the youngest player in MLB at 20 years old, Sabathia had proven his potential. And over the offseason, he was offered his first contract, $9.5 million over 4 years, which he gladly accepted. But as he adjusted to his new lifestyle, Sabathia's drinking would only continue to escalate. On May 16th, 2002, the team had an off day in between games, and after experiencing another rough start to the season, Sabathia decided to go out for some drinks. But before he knew it, it was almost 4 in the morning, and it was at this point that he was suddenly staring at a gun being pointed directly at him. That night, Sabathia was robbed of tens of thousands of dollars in jewelry and cash. But he wasn't worried about the money. His drinking had almost cost him his life, and in that moment, he realized he needed help. So, for the rest of that year, he began living with his father and his girlfriend, and for the most part, was able to stay out of trouble. By 2003, he was feeling more comfortable than ever on the mound, allowing him to focus on developing pitches and dialing in his control. So despite weighing close to 300 pounds for the first time in his life, he would dominate in the first half of the season, earning his very first All-Star selection. This was also the year he would get married and have his first child with his wife Amber. But just when everything was starting to go right, Sabathia would experience the most difficult losses of his entire life. His father, who had been dealing with cancer for months, tragically passed away at 47 years old. And despite everything he had dealt with up to this point, Sabathia later said that it was the toughest thing I've ever had to go through. But just when things couldn't get any worse, he would lose two more relatives he'd grown up with, his uncle and his cousin. Devastated, Sabathia kept drinking to numb his emotions and buried his pain by continuing to pitch. In 2004, he was named an All-Star for the second year in a row, and in 2005, he was a key component on a team that was suddenly in the race for the postseason. His fastball was now averaging 94.7 miles an hour, the highest in the American League, and this, combined with a massive improvement in terms of his command, resulted in another great year that helped his team win 93 games. Though, unfortunately, this would not be enough to reach the postseason. In 2006, the team regressed significantly, and in June, Sabathia had the worst start of his career, giving up 9 runs in less than 3 innings. Frustrated, he began drinking immediately after coming out of the game, ending up drunk by the time it was over. Now, he would later apologize to his teammates for his performance, but to his surprise, none of them were upset. And it was thanks to their support and reassurance that he would quickly regain his confidence and have his best season yet. But this was only the beginning of an incredible next few years. In 2007, Sabathia would finally begin to reach his insanely high potential that many had been waiting for. In fact, he was so dominant that he didn't allow more than 2 runs in each of 10 straight starts. So, after finishing with 19 wins and a 3.21 ERA, Sabathia would take home the Cy Young Award. With the help of young talent and some major trades, Cleveland was back in the postseason, and team confidence was at an all-time high. So, after defeating the Yankees in the first round, Sabathia was ready to lead his team to the World Series. However, facing the Red Sox in the ALCS, things would not go as expected. Sabathia was the starter for Game 1, and it wouldn't take long before all of his confidence had disappeared. Before he knew it, he had given up 7 runs in less than 5 innings, a deficit which Cleveland was unable to overcome. Although, despite this defeat, hope was not entirely lost, as the team would manage to win the next 3 games in a row, putting them just 1 win away from a championship. And with Sabathia on the mound in Game 5, this was his chance to redeem himself. But once again, he simply couldn't stop the Red Sox, giving up 4 runs in 6 innings. Boston would end up taking the series in 7 games, and Sabathia was crushed, blaming himself for the team's collapse. In 2008, the team would completely fall apart, and with it being the final year of his contract, the Indians traded Sabathia to Milwaukee in exchange for 4 players. Sabathia felt betrayed, as he had spent his entire career with Cleveland, yet out of nowhere, he was boarding a plane to meet his new team. But fueled by this anger and a desire to overcome his failures, he would put up insane numbers in Milwaukee, posting an incredible ERA of just 1.65 in his final 17 starts. So, on the heels of arguably his best season yet, Sabathia was set up for a massive payday in free agency. But after weeks of waiting for offers, the only team that seemed interested was the Yankees, a team which Sabathia had no interest in playing for. You see, he had heard from other players that New York was the worst environment for a player, with an unforgiving fan base and extremely harsh media. In fact, before he could even make his decision, the Yankees media was already extremely critical of Sabathia, saying that he wouldn't be able to handle the pressure and that he was too fat. However, despite the potential drawbacks of playing for the Yankees, their offer was simply too difficult to reject, and after much deliberation, he eventually agreed. The deal was for $161 million over 7 years, the largest pitching contract in history at the time, and in 2009, he would immediately prove his worth. Throughout the season, Sabathia continued to drink and party almost every single night. Yet, despite drinking so much that he routinely passed out, he never let it affect his pitching, as he would completely sober up right before each start. And as crazy as it was, it seemed to be working. 2009 was another great year for Sabathia, as he would pick up 19 wins while posting a 3.37 ERA. So at the time, Sabathia saw no reason to change his routine, later saying this about his mentality: "It's just the culture of baseball. It was all normalized. I didn't think I was dependent on alcohol. Nobody's going to question what I'm doing at night if I come out here and handle my business on the field." As for the Yankees, Sabathia had joined the team at the best possible time. You see, superstars like Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera were still putting up incredible numbers despite their age, and over the offseason, the team had made some massive improvements to their roster. So after winning 103 games in the regular season, the Yankees were set to dominate throughout the postseason, and that's exactly what they did. Their first opponent was the Twins, and Sabathia earned his first postseason win on the way to a 3-game sweep. So when facing the Angels in the ALCS, his confidence was at an all-time high. He made 2 starts in the series, winning both and allowing just 2 runs in 16 innings. The Yankees would go on to win the series in 6 games, earning a ticket to the World Series in a matchup against the Phillies. Once again, Sabathia would have a strong outing in Game 1, but with no run support, it wasn't enough for the victory. Nonetheless, he would get another chance in Game 4 following back-to-back wins for New York, and despite giving up 3 runs, the Yankees would come out on top once again. At this point, the team was just 1 win away from a championship, and in Game 6, they would shut the door on the Phillies. So, in the past few years, Sabathia had accomplished what many pitchers could only dream of, winning a Cy Young Award and becoming a world champion. But what's even crazier is that he did all of it while being completely out of shape and spending most nights drunk. To celebrate, he accepted an invite to a private party hosted by Jay-Z, under the promise to his wife that he wouldn't drink. However, the next morning, he woke up hungover and naked by the pool. Still, he refused to believe that he had a problem, and next season, he continued to find success. With more confidence than ever, Sabathia would earn his 4th All-Star selection in 2010, and during that year, he picked up 21 wins, the most he had ever won in a single season. Though it was around this time that he began to have issues with his right knee, and over the offseason, he opted to undergo surgery. In addition, he made an effort to lose weight, cutting 25 pounds before the start of the season. In both 2011 and 2012, Sabathia would maintain his dominance, picking up back-to-back All-Star selections and winning 34 starts combined. But unfortunately, the effects of his weight, his rising age, and his drinking habits would begin to show over the next few years. In 2012, he would have yet another drunken episode, getting behind the wheel and crashing his favorite car. But his mental health wasn't the only thing that was suffering. Injuries would start to become a common occurrence, especially in his right knee and left elbow, leading to his worst season ever in 2013. So, in an attempt to regain strength and mobility, he lost 40 pounds in preparation for 2014. However, despite his best efforts to stay healthy, his knee was still in pain, causing his season to be over after just 8 starts. But what happened in 2015 would change Sabathia's life forever. Over the offseason, Sabathia gained back all the weight he had lost, putting him at 305 pounds to start the year. His knee was still causing severe pain, and after a start in June where he gave up 5 runs in a single inning, he knew he needed to make a change. You see, his fastball was not the same as it used to be, and no longer could he simply throw as hard as possible and expect results. A new approach was necessary for success, and he began experimenting with a new pitch, the cutter, to help counteract his diminishing power. And by the end of the season, he started to regain his confidence as he became more comfortable not relying on his fastball. In the final week of the season, the Yankees secured a trip to the postseason for the first time in 3 years. And relieved, Sabathia began drinking non-stop, leading up to the final series of the year against the Orioles. But this was not one of his normal binges. He later recalled a specific moment when he ultimately realized he had a serious problem. It was being in a hotel room in Baltimore, not being able to stop drinking. Literally telling myself I can't have another drink and still going back to my minibar and pouring more Hennessy. That was rock bottom for me. It wasn't getting a DUI, it wasn't getting in trouble or court orders. I definitely had my run-ins, and I definitely could have gotten in trouble or lost my life. But none of those things fazed me. It was me not being able to stop. Throughout his entire career, he had never allowed the drinking to affect his game, but now he was so intoxicated that he couldn't even throw a bullpen. So for Sabathia, this was rock bottom, and not long after, he made the difficult decision of checking himself into rehab. Now, unfortunately, this would mean that he would miss the postseason entirely, but at this point, the most important thing was getting help. Over the next few months, Sabathia finally found the help he desperately needed, and for the first time in his life, he no longer had to struggle in secret. In preparation for the 2016 season, he made some much-needed changes to his routine. For one, he got rid of all his alcohol, and for road trips, the Yankees had every hotel empty the minibar in Sabathia's room. So it was thanks to these changes that he would experience a massive career resurgence at 35 years old. Over the next few years, he would thrive using his new style of pitching, focusing less on power and more on precision. In 2017, he would win more than 10 games for the first time since 2013, helping his team to make a short run in the postseason. And in 2018, he would post his lowest ERA in 6 years. Now, unfortunately, he would need to undergo heart surgery in December of that year, and following his recovery, he announced that he would be retiring following the 2019 season. However, Sabathia made the most of his final year. On April 30th, he became just the third left-hander in history to record 3,000 strikeouts, and during his final start on September 18th, he received a well-deserved standing ovation. Over the course of his career, CC Sabathia dealt with tragedy, loss, addiction, and countless injuries. And when considering his weight and drinking habits, it's a miracle that he was able to compete, let alone become a 6-time All-Star, a Cy Young winner, and a world champion. Today, Sabathia has been sober for over 9 years. And in 2025, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest pitchers of his generation.